Hello, the internet. Today we're going to talk about how you control the chaotic environment of combat. Right, as I have written up here at the top, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Right. You have the fog of war. Literally, sometimes the fog of all the munitions and smoke and other things going off that obscure your vision, as well as difficulty of thinking because you have that adrenaline pumping, and just the fact that you're fighting another living being who's going to do everything they can to not let you do what you want. They absolutely have a vote in the fight, and you're going to have to make adjustments and considerations based on that. So, how do we plan for this, and how do we execute this, and how do we control this, knowing that it's going to be difficult? All right. When we're conducting our planning phase, we want to keep commander's intent as the primary focus, right? It's not how you accomplish the goal, it's just that the goal is accomplished. Okay, so the commander's intent for an operation might be that you ambush an enemy patrol, right? You ambush an enemy patrol in order to harass their movements or in order to gain intel, right? That in order to part is also important. If we're not able to even execute in the same way, what was the point? If we're doing a direct attack to seize the city, right? So we understand what the goal is. It's not how step by step we accomplish that goal, but that we are able to accomplish that goal, right? The support by fire hill is filled with mines. Okay, we'll find another support by fire location and support the attack. The door you're supposed to breach is fortified. We'll breach a window or blow a hole in the wall. You're tasked with defending a main road to deny the enemy freedom of movement, but you find out the force that's advancing on you is 10 times your size. Well, you can blow or otherwise put obstacles in the road and then split into harassing squads to delay or deny the enemy movement down that MSR. Okay, so we might have to entirely change the type of operation we're doing, but we're still attempting to fulfill that commander's intent. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is conditions set, right? So the signal to move from one step to the next or one phase to the next of whatever the operation is, right? Whatever the attack is determined by previous actions being met. Right? This allows us to understand what's going on without having to do a bunch of communicating or possibly any communicating, and allows us to understand what's happening even if adjustments are being made, right? The support by fire can begin to suppress when the assault is in their staged position. The assault can launch when support by fire starts to suppress, right? So assault doesn't care where a support by fire is or if it takes them longer or shorter or whatever. Once support by fire is suppressing, assault knows they can launch, all right? We can depart from the ORP when darkness sets in, right? These could be environmental factors we're waiting on, but we all know, hey, once this factor happens, that means we're doing this. You don't have to listen to me to tell you. You don't have to wait for my signal. We don't have to guess. You don't have to worry about if I'm in spot A or spot B. When this happens, we're moving to the next step. All right, support by fire will move from position 1 to position 2 when no longer able to support from position 1, right? So even if that happens at a different time than we plan, when they can no longer support from position 1, they will move to position 2, even if that happens at a different time. All right. Next, we're going to talk about tactical control measures. So these are like overview ideas, like zooming out how we think about planning, and these are going to be actual little ways that we do and plan things to make sure that the operations and missions conduct smoothly, even if we have to make adjustments on the fly. All right, so first we have checkpoints. Checkpoints are just points you make along your route of any patrol you plan to travel, and you have pre-established. You're going to stop at those checkpoints. You're going to check in with command. You should put these checkpoints at what you assess to be every 30 to 60 minutes of movement or every 1 kilometer traveled. Those variables you can change depending on your METTC But checkpoints give the patrol continued points along their route that allow you to have fallback positions, allow you to quickly coordinate stuff, to relink with people, pick up resupply, have QRF join up with you, right? So rather than having to stop and pull out a map and plot a point, pick it, based on a map recon or a visual recon, you've already done all that, and you've already picked your points out, and you've already planned them, you've already given that list of checkpoints to your command element, and everybody on the patrol knows those checkpoints. So if I say we're going to checkpoint 3, or we're going to checkpoint Zulu, or checkpoint Budweiser, right? However you want to label your checkpoints, everybody understands what that is. I don't have to spend a bunch of time figuring it out and explaining what it is and wondering if they wrote it down the right way. We all know. Very quick and simple. All right. Objective rally point. This is just a checkpoint that we know is the last point before we transition from a patrol to some sort of an attack or other mission situation, right? Could be an ambush or something else. But a release point. A release point is where units separate, right? So if we're all patrolling together somewhere and then we're going to break off for, could be lots of different reasons, that point that we pre-plan to break off will be a release point. Assault position. That's the last point of cover and concealment for the assaulting element, right? Phase line. Phase lines are imaginary lines on the battle space, often correlated with physical features like roads, creeks, or power lines. Phase lines are used to keep units uniform on line, right, which allows good symmetrical fields of fire. We can't have one unit be 500 yards of everybody else and the support by fire is cut off. It's all messed up, right? It's never going to be perfect, but we want us to generally clear through things at the assault element online. Okay, so these phase lines allow us to keep units online, allowing us to hold units that are too far ahead to allow other units to catch up. We also can use phase lines to coordinate combined arms suppression, right? Probably a little in the weeds for us Minutemen, but I'll just go ahead and get into it real quick, right? Say we have artillery and mortars and machine guns to suppress us, and we're going to attack through a large area, right? Well, while we're in that assault position, artillery can suppress targets at phase line 3, mortars can suppress targets at phase line 2, and guns can suppress targets at phase line 1. We will begin to assault, and guns will shift as we assault. Once the assault is at phase line 1, they will pause and communicate that to the greater elements. This means arty will shift to phase line 4 targets, 81s will shift to phase line 3 targets, and guns will begin to suppress phase line 2, and that lets the assault begin to advance, right? Going back up here to condition set. Once guns are beginning to suppress phase line 2, that's condition set for assault to begin to advance again from phase line 1. Right, so that's how you would use phase lines to creep those suppressions and use them also as condition set to control, coordinate the movement of all your elements. All right, support by fire is just a fixed location where you mass fires on the enemy's front in order to fix them and allow assault to flank. All right, so that's where the big machine guns or the SPRs or the DMRs or whatever the situation is, where they're located. Target reference point. Key terrain that support by fire can use to communicate fields of fire to units. In other words, gun team 2, you have from the large water tower to the 4-way intersection, right? So we're using those tactical reference points to clearly communicate fields of fire. Pre-planned targets. Structures or terrain that you expect the enemy to occupy and pre-established targets and firing data for them, right? Whether you're indirect fire or a SPR, sniper, or a machine gun, whatever the case is, you pre-plan how far that's going to be from where you're at and what that firing data means for what your weapon system is. This allows everybody to rapidly and accurately shift their fires to these targets on command. All right. Limit of advance. The imaginary line that we do not plan to assault beyond. Okay, so that's going to be a phase line, the final phase line, and its command and control is to not have units continue to advance off into the wild blue yonder. Objective. the physical objective location of the mission, the building we want to raid, the trench we want to seize, the convoy we want to ambush. Link point, a checkpoint designated to link 2 or more units together. Assembly area, a location of forward field command and bulk logistics for the mission, right? So if you're doing a large operation, the assembly area will continue to move as the operation marches forward. And units can come from the front back to the assembly area to refit and then go back out on op. Casualty collection point, a location where injured and medical staff consolidate either during an attack if it's a large enough attack or after the attack if it is a smaller attack. All right, so these are the different types of tactical control measures you can implement in your planning, and this is the greater considerations we have when we're planning them. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.